yeah, it's just evolved, and it's something I feel quite strongly about. It's sort of tapping into like a lost language. I love history. It's kind of looking that I'd call them spells because I want to allude to like the witchcraft trials. I want to allude to sort of oppression, female ways of expression of, the knowledge of all these herbalists and wise women who were understanding and reading their environment and helping people, and that we've lost that, and we've also lost it for ourselves. And so that's my heart, bring that back.
Welcome to Soul-Led Creative Women, a podcast for creatively curious women seeking rich, soul-led ways to look after themselves better. I'm Sam Horton, and in this episode I talk with Helena Perry. Helena creates the most stunning paintings that are actually magic spells, and she also teaches workshops all about drawing as meditation for well-being. It was a really beautiful conversation. I hope you enjoy it. So today I have Helena Perry with me. Helena is a UK-based artist and teacher who has spent a lifetime teaching art and creating artwork for all manner of clients, from personal commissions to the Sunday Times and even TV. The theme that ties all her output together is well-being. She has learnt through many cycles of burnout that finding a way of living more aligned with nature is essential for health and the planet. Her stunning paintings are actually magic spells, the combination of hours of research, attention, and intention, helping you call into your life what you need. She is also an experienced teacher and currently runs online courses that explore the place between how we're wired, the practice of meditation, and drawing from observation. Her paintings and workshops invite you to slow down, take a breath, notice the magic moments around you, and receive the nourishment that connection to nature and the universe offers. So welcome, Helena.
Thank you very much. Hello.
So today we're going to be talking about Helena's work, including the process of her magic spell paintings and her workshops, which empower others to embrace drawing from observation as meditation and a way to practice being more mindful and present. So let's start at the beginning, Helena. I understand that you've always been creating and teaching art. So tell me about your first experiences with art as a child and what it meant to you in those early formative years.
Oh, goodness. Well, I was thinking about this recently, that there wasn't that much to do when I was a child. It was quite a boring house that I grew up in, and drawing was really a refuge for me. I think probably I got a bit of encouragement. Probably somebody said, "Oh, you're quite good." I don't think I was exceptionally better than anybody else. I just think it became my outlet. And it wasn't a particularly easy house to grow up in. And so I think it was a wonderful escape for me to be in my own world and to create stuff and play, basically playing. And I don't know if in Australia you had like Tony Hart. There used to be a TV program for kids, Tony Hart, every week. So I used to watch that and then go to the table and like make what he'd done on telly. But it was, an amazing outlet for me.
Excellent. And so how has that changed then? How has your relationship with it changed, during the adult years? And, how has it been part of your own empowered wellness story in that capacity?
Well, that's a long story.
Go for it.
So I suppose really what I'm doing now is trying to get back to how I approached it in those days. And in between where I am now and where I started was a load of crap, basically, of trying to impose a load of other expectations and beliefs onto the art. And certainly I studied art all the way through degree level and beyond, and was completely dissatisfied at every step. Didn't feel like I was getting the teaching I needed, didn't feel that I was achieving what I needed. And then again, when I sort of was looking professionally, trying to think about how would you make money out of this? Can you, the sort of dying poor artist myth, thinking, is it possible? and actually betraying my own style in order to see if I could, make a career out of it. And so now I feel like I'm actually getting back to where I started from, which is just to lean into what I want to do, really, and not impose anything else on it. So it's been a very long journey. I mean, it's been a 45-year journey. I'm still on it,
Wow. So powerful. My goodness. I can relate to so much of that. And I think, embedded in that is this idea that it's actually the process, and painting from the soul or whatever, or from, what is truest for us versus, painting to produce something beautiful. It's two different things, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's, the output is, I can't lie and say I don't care at all about what what the output is. But really for me now the process is the main thing. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. I actually sort of say it's like the 80-20 rule. So 80% of it's the process that you get so much out of the process. And then 20% of it's the actual, beautiful piece of art that you've made at the end. It still does have some value, but it's certainly, nowhere near the same as the process. So yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, so your most recent body of work features these beautiful magic spell paintings. So I'm assuming that is definitely a soul-led piece of work. Obviously, for people listening in, they don't have the visuals. So can you describe the essence of what these stunning paintings, they are truly stunning, what the essence of them is so we can create that sort of visual in our minds? And of course, we will be putting the links in the show notes as well. So people will be able to get into the visual as well. But yeah, just describe it for us.
Okay, so I work on paperboard, so it's a bit like mountain board, and at the moment I'm working quite small, but I've just bought some really big sheets, which I'm quite excited about. So I work a sort of A3 size, and I start with, it's just playing really. So it's just like a sort of explosion of color, making a mess with watercolor, pigment, just raw pigment. So that's like a dust, gold leaf, and loads of paints. And I basically make a sort of soupy mess and play around with it. And it's a little bit of a dance between me controlling it and serendipity. Things, always happen and you think, oh, that's lovely, I'll keep that. Or you can, after years of working on composition, you can kind of nudge it if it's not going how you want. So that's the first step. And that creates a ground on which I work. In fact, if you're, there you go, there's one. And so that's the beginning, and that's just play. So that's really free. On this series, I'm working with circles. So I've actually been working on incorporating circles right into the first step. And then after that, it's sometimes the theme of the painting comes first, and I feel like I know what I need to create, a spell for something. And sometimes there's something that catches my eye that I think I've just got to paint that, and that comes first, and then the sort of theme comes later. But basically, I've become quite strict with myself now. I've just worked from observation where it's all possible, and I work from direct observation. So that's actually getting the thing in front of me. And then the process of actually working on top of the ground, obviously it has to be dry. So this process goes on for weeks and weeks. And then I might find a bit of grass or a plant. And I also moth trap. So I catch moths when I'm going to be doing painting. I might moth trap. And if I find a particular moth, I think, oh, that one is a beauty. And to be honest, it's a bit overwhelming because I can catch 300 in a night. And it's like, oh, God, I want to do them all. So I don't very often. I do it quick, and then I kind of have to clear.
Some of them have to be pretty ugly, though, right? Some of them
No.
have to be. Oh no, they're all beautiful. You think they're all beautiful?
There's one that looks like poo. And that's amazing. It actually, it's a self-defense, the kind of camouflage. But I don't. So the trapping doesn't harm them while they're alive, and then I release them again. So obviously, it's really time limited. And also because I'm busy, I've got a family, so I haven't got that much time anyway. So each drawing session is about 1 or 2 hours. And then I work from direct observation with no pencil lines or anything, straight in with watercolor, working from observation of what I've got in front of me. And then I might go in with coloured pencil just to refine a bit or pull out some colour. And then that object's done and I move on to the next object. So this is the sort of next stage. I've put some here because I work quite slowly and I work with the seasons. I have about at least 10 paintings on the go at any time. So each one of these is probably another 1 or 2 hour drawing session. And then I curate them on the same piece. So none of it's really on the page at the same time. It's a bit artificial. And then I just keep building up until I get to the point where so you kind of get spaces in the composition which invite certain shapes and certain colours. And if it's a theme, it's amazing. Once you sort of open your eyes to the theme you're working with, you're like, oh, and actually sometimes it's overwhelming because even if I'm walking the dog or something, I think, oh God, that needs to go in and that needs to go in. And, it's only going to be fresh for this week. I've got to get on with it. So this is nearly finished, this one. I've got a little space in the middle here that I know what I'm going to put in there. I just got to find it first. And then this is a slightly different series, a bit more colourful, but this one is finished. And so the last thing I do, I don't know if you can see that, is working with gold. So I've either used gold leaf, and this time I've played with liquid gold leaf, which is very good. Yeah. And then that's it, really. And it's just knowing
Wow.
when to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is curiosity sparks more curiosity, right? So when you're out in nature, but I love this piece around the sense of urgency around it, because quite often I will photograph and I don't think it's the same experience. I don't think it's the same thing when you're painting from photographs. You miss some of the essence, of the object. So I think that's a really beautiful thing, as long as not putting pressure on you to create when you're not in that creative mindset, I suppose. But I think
Well,
it's a really beautiful thing.
I think that's quite useful as well. I mean, actually, practically speaking, a lens compresses the image. So you don't get the depth of color that your eyes can see. You don't get the richness of the reflections. And I have worked when I really can't get something. I'm working with neurons at the moment. I really can't see them. So I have to rely on images for that. But your eyes have so much more depth than a photograph. And you have this relationship with the thing in front of you. It sort of unfolds in front of your eyes. You see more and more and more. And I do it's almost like a performance, each drawing. It has that pressure. It has that feeling of, you've got to get on stage and do the thing. And you've got a limited amount of time. Some of the stuff that I'm drawing is actually, like the foliage is actually dying in front of me. It's actually moving. You've got to be quick. And there is you can, I think, sense it in the picture. It's a sense of sort of aliveness that if you overwork something and do it again and again, you lose it. And working, what you just said about only working when you're feeling creative. So I don't really have that luxury because I've got limited time. And I do sometimes find that doing the process, even if I'm not feeling it, I might be so delighted with the outcome, but it's certainly done something for me. Just going through that process, it actually puts you into a much more mindful state and more receptive. It does change something.
Absolutely. I think that's really important. I think I guess what I was getting at was more so this pushing energy, forcing yourself to keep doing it because it's going to die. That's quite a dramatic thing, isn't it? It's a bit different kind of pressure. But I agree. I feel like showing up is half the battle. If you can do that, you've already won. Yeah. So how did this theme or the style of painting with these spells, how did that come about? That must have been quite a journey in itself. I can imagine that evolves slowly over time. Yeah, tell us about the sort of journey in terms of, where you started versus where you are now with the spell paintings.
Yeah. I mean, how far do you want me to go back? I mean, I really was a portrait painter. So it started with portraits, and I was doing these watercolor portraits, actually inspired by some journaling prompts. And I had a sort of explosion of different natural things around the heads. And I'm playing around with the stuff. The portrait's all quite straightforward. Um, and then I just was playing around with all these kind of elements that I was doing around them, thinking, actually, there's stuff in here. The face is kind of detracting from just what's up here. So I thought I'd just play around with doing the background without the face. And then it sort of evolved. And the more I was doing it, I had a friend who's a poet, and she came and said, "Oh, you need to write the spells that go with these." And I was like, "Oh." And then together we were discussing it, and yeah, it's just evolved, and it's something I feel quite strongly about. It's sort of tapping into like a lost language. I love history. It's kind of looking that I'd call them spells because I want to allude to like the witchcraft trials. I want to allude to sort of oppression, female ways of expression, of the knowledge of all these herbalists and wise women who were understanding and reading their environment and helping people, and that we've lost that, and we've also lost a connection to ourselves. And so that's my heart, bring that back and also that they're quiet. It's not sort of bombastic. They're just sort of quiet whispering, and with some
getting
kind
goosebumps as you're talking there. So beautiful. The word that came to me actually when you were saying that was healing. We used to be able to heal each other, and we've lost that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we still can. I think we can heal ourselves. I think actually, before we look at each other, we all have the power to heal ourselves. But it's being quiet long enough and trusting the intuition to actually to know that that's what it is and what you're doing. And that's what I'm hoping to kind of transmit. And the whole process, the fact that they take ages, some of them have taken 2 years because I'm waiting for things to come around in the seasons, or I've just got so many on that, I'm spinning 20 plates at once. And I feel that you can feel that passage of time in the actual picture as well. That makes it something a little bit less throwaway than 1 hour's explosion of paint. Yeah, so that's where it comes.
I love that. I love that. I feel like, for a lot of artists, there's this pressure to sort of churn out the art like a bit of a factory, and this is a way, to keep working and maybe to work, quite proficiently, but also to take your time with it. Do you know what I mean? If you're doing sort of 10 at a time and you're, really sort of letting each one evolve as it needs to, then that's quite a special thing. You're still capturing that sort of time, energy, and the patience, that comes with that sort of process. So that's really beautiful. I just think they're stunning paintings, honestly.
Oh,
And I think it's so hard to capture some of that in an Instagram post. I know you do the close-ups and stuff, but I mean, I feel the same way about my stuff too. You look at it on the wall and in person, and you can see this depth and this energy in it that you just can't see online.
I always get comments. I was lucky enough to have an exhibition this year. So I had a solo exhibition. So all of them were in one room. Everything, I think about 15 paintings in one room. And I had so many comments from people saying, I had no idea. They'd been looking on Instagram. They'd had no idea there was so much depth. And the colours, obviously, like we were saying before, the lens flattens the colours. But when you're looking at it, it responds to the light. So you see different things. And because there's gold in it as well, it really does, it twinkles, it changes. And having them all together, it actually really creates this incredible holding space as well, that you're sort of in you're walking into an atmosphere, it's tangible. And you obviously don't get that through an Instagram post. I also tried to video myself making them as well. So I've got, at this point, I don't know how many time lapses, but a lot of me actually drawing each element, because that's like magic as well. I mean, actually, I have to say, it's a bit dangerous. You feel like a superhuman because when it's a time lapse, you're like a whole day's work is condensed in 1 minute, and you're like, wow, I did that. But it's interesting to see, even for me, how it sort of evolves out of the paper, out of the board. So you can, as it's developing, just through through the video. But obviously, it's not the same as seeing the whole thing finished in person. But it's quite magic to evolve as well.
Yeah, so did you stitch those together then afterwards? So you must have a really good naming system for those videos then, if you're stitching them together after you spent 2 years creating it. Goodness, yeah, so piece of work in itself.
Yeah, well, I release them as I do them, so they're just shorts. They're just
Okay.
30 seconds, one item, and then
Okay.
yes, I have a pretty good aiming system. I love you all, but on the organisation, yeah. So then I stitch them all together, and you can see it just growing. Yeah, so I've got a few of start to finish, and
Um,
then yeah, I just release them as they're done, so you can just see one, a wasp's nest or a moth.
yeah, lovely, lovely, so lovely. And I think, painting them, having little individual elements to the paintings like that, you kind of get your satisfaction of something being complete each time you're sort of, sitting down without having completed the whole painting. So that's lovely as well. So do you write any spells alongside these paintings, or are you still keeping just the visual element and the sort of spell is for interpretation? Is that, the way that you're doing it, or are you writing as well?
Good question. So the friend that I mentioned before, her name is Rachel Bauer, by the way. She's an amazing poet. Check her out. She's written books and everything. So she actually wrote a little poem for 5 of my spells.
Oh,
That was totally amazing. That was like a total spine chilling moment. I had goosebumps. I actually cried when I read them because it was amazing to create something. Sometimes I feel like I don't have words. That's why I make pictures. I find it quite hard to find the words. And she had just put these very choice, sparse words together that summed everything up. It's just like magic,
wow.
ironically. So I have those 5 poems. We haven't quite decided what to do with those yet. But for the rest of them, I do write down the reason that each element is there. So I do quite a lot of research, and I also, follow a little bit of intuition and find something that fits, and then research it and work out something about it that relates to the spell that I'm creating. So I do write quite a lot about each painting. In fact, I've got a blog per one of my series per
Okay.
painting. Actually, a sort of explanation of what you're hoping to get from that item, but it's certainly not like an incantation, like a spell you would say. That is for the viewer.
Yeah, wow. Okay. I was just wondering from an Instagram point of view, right? So I can imagine, getting clever and, sort of using those words, even the blog post ones, the poem obviously would be spectacular, but, the blog posts, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Mixing kind of your art with the words, because it is such a visual thing for us and such a personal thing. And ultimately it comes down to personal interpretation anyway when it's sitting on the wall, right? So, yeah, it's a nice little, additional piece that you could explore alongside them, as part of that, the way you communicate them. You know what I mean? Like you're communicating the essence of them. So,
I do
yeah.
quite a long time writing the words that go with the Instagram posts. Read the words, everyone, because that I do try to put in there, a lot of what I'm trying to express in paint and why I've chosen those things.
Yeah. But then maybe for you to say it, like there's power in kind of this voice over the top of the painting. If you're looking at kind of a visual of a painting and then having the artist speak to you about it, that could be quite powerful as well.
Thanks for those real ideas. That's it. Great.
Oh, you got to share these things. That's why I said it. So what do these paintings embody for you personally as the artist? What do you hope that they're capturing and expressing either subtly or really intentionally? What is it that you want people to get out of these?
I want them to be like medicine. So I want them to be, it's like going to the doctor and saying, I've got terrible heartache, I'm so sad. And then you find your spell for sorrow and you lean into it and you sit with it and you get the wisdom from the painting. You look at what's in the painting, which connects you to where you are, to your environment. Hopefully, there are things in there which are very I don't use anything which is really rare. So I try to find things that you'll see. So that might be a shell, it might be a type of thistle. And then you lean into it and you sort of listen to the wisdom of that item. A lot of the plants I use have medicinal qualities, and you let it heal you. You sit with it as a point of meditation or a point of intention. If there's something so for example, if you need courage for something, I've done a spell for courage. I want it to be used. I don't want it just to be sitting in a dusty corner and never looked at again. I want it to actually be a focal point where you can look at it and you can pep yourself up. And, there's a brimstone with lovely acid color that really fortifies your heart and makes you feel that you can do what you might be a bit afraid of doing. And so I really want them to be medicine. I want them to be healing. I want them to help people. And I want them to connect people to the world around them, nature, and themselves, their own feelings. Yeah.
I've got a couple of really awesome ideas that just popped into my head as you were saying all of that. So the first one is like this idea of affirmation cards. You could do some really like large affirmation cards with kind of writing on the back and the image on the front. And the other thing, you need to do a book. This would make a beautiful book. Wouldn't this make a beautiful book?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all your ideas.
I think that would make a beautiful book. So take or leave, but sometimes we need like help writing the permission slip. So there you go.
But a few things I've already thought about. In fact, I started the whole thing thinking about making cards, and I need to do more in order to have a full deck.
Yeah.
But there are two things that I would love to do. That's wonderful. No, I love it. Thank you so much.
I think it's magic. Okay. So you've now created a series of Drawing for Wellbeing workshops. So tell us a bit about what led you to create these wonderful workshops.
Well, I've taught since I was in my early 20s, so I love teaching, and working in a studio is quite a lonely pursuit, and I do like people. And so they've sort of evolved over the last few years. I've been doing lots in person, and then I did one just quite recently where the focus was on meditation. But it's really just the joy of seeing people achieve their potential and understand what's the right word? Demythologize. What's the word I'm looking for?
Demystify.
Demystify. That's the one. Demystify brain. Yeah, it's just been really wonderful. And so I'd worked as an art teacher for many, many years. And I have to say, I'm really not interested in teaching people how to draw. There's so many courses out there. They're brilliant courses. If you want to learn to draw, go and do that. That's not me. I'm really interested in showing people what holding a pencil can do for your well-being in terms of focus, in terms of actually listening to your own inner critic and working out that is your inner critic and not necessarily the truth. And I've just had so much amazing feedback, and it's been really so heartening to see so many people come out the other side with these wonderful stories. It just makes me want to do it again and again and again. It's wonderful. It's a gift.
So do people come to you with drawing experience, or are they still in that learning to draw phase then? So how do you marry up, this sort of well-being experience with, the skills that you need really to be able to draw?
I get all sorts of people with absolutely no experience at all, and people who've got degrees in art. I've had everything, everywhere in between that. And really, we're not focused on the drawing at all. So it's all about the process. And we start off with looking a little bit at how we're wired, our brains, and the neurology of what's happening, and start to sort of unpick. It's so interesting. People seem to have all these misconceptions about who is allowed to draw, what drawing is, what is a good drawing. And some of it is ridiculous. Some of it's the teacher in year 3 said something to them and they're carrying that still as a 50-year-old person. So we just look at that a little bit, and then we start to break down the process, and we use the process in the same way that I actually create my paintings. So it's really highly focused. And when we're holding the pencil, we're using it like an open eye meditation. We're really looking at what's in front of us. And the minute your attention wavers, unlike with other forms of meditation, I've tried a lot of meditation, and sometimes you put the timer on and then 10 minutes has gone and you thought, oh God, I've just sat and listed my shopping list for 10 minutes. But when you have a pencil in your hand, as soon as you lose your focus, you can see. So it's such a powerful tool because it brings you straight back. You suddenly say, oh, that line is not actually accurate. So you have to then get your focus back. So that's one part of the course that I'm running, and that's for everybody. So we're not looking for a final piece. We're not looking for a full sketchbook of masterpieces. We're looking for practice in the same way that you would have a daily meditation practice. And then we have other things that we do alongside that as well. So we start to look at how just to connect you more to the world around you, and to sort of, I think the best word is alchemize, to alchemize the joyful moments, because, we're not wired for those. We're wired to remember all the negative things. So we sort of work on that, build that up. Yeah. So that's in essence what they are. And because it's a group thing, it's really wonderful. People have these wonderful realizations with each other. I've had people then go and meet up in person afterwards and, do some drawing together. And yeah, it's a lovely community.
Yeah, wonderful. And so what would you say are the most common challenges I can imagine people can get themselves into a bit of a mental, funk, so to speak, with that process of drawing and letting go. Like we've said in the beginning, it's this attachment to the outcome versus immersing yourself in the process. What are the common challenges that people are facing, and how do you help them overcome that?
So everybody has some form of inner critic that is rampant, basically running the show. What is difficult is if people aren't aware that that's an inner critic and not the truth. And we start from there, really. We will break it all down by removing the ability to judge, by closing our eyes and tapping into our feelings. So we do quite a lot to begin with, just about building the relationship with listening to yourself, which can be really uncomfortable. And then we notice the uncomfortable things and work out why they're uncomfortable, or sit with them and let them go. So yeah, that's the biggest obstacle a lot of people have. I mean, people have got all sorts of things going on. I've been so humbled. People, when they come, they have a booking form. I don't think there's been anybody who said, "Yeah, life's great, it's easy." People have got such stuff going on. Dealing with long-term sickness or massive anxiety issues, or looking after relatives who are seriously ill, and so they're already sort of in a position where they really need this. They really need this as a space for themselves, which is quite helpful in a way, because it's almost like another reason that this has more weight. It's not just a nice thing to do. It's something that's actually going to be beneficial. And the people that have done the course, the benefits, it's interesting. Drawing doesn't really come into it. Yeah, they're all better at drawing now, but they're not listing that as one of the benefits. So the sleep, more calm, ability to regulate themselves, ability to actually feel their feelings and to know what's going on, a connection to the world around them, so much joy. I mean, that's one of the main things. So wonderful. Everybody, because we have a Facebook group, and everybody every day is sharing these little moments of joy, and that resonates around the whole group. Yeah, and I've had some people overcome, somebody had a real big anxiety block with drawing because of a horrific incident when she was a child. And, she was actually having a panic attack I'm amazed she put herself through it. She was brave enough to say, right, I've got to deal with this. And at the end, she doesn't have that at all anymore. In fact, she just feels delighted. So that was an amazing win. Somebody else had a creative block when they started. She was dealing with some bereavement, some quite horrible situation that she had come from. And she started, with a creative block. And by the end of the course, she'd got herself a studio.
Oh, right.
Which is, I was like, wow. So it's not really about the drawing or the outcome. It's more about sort of helping people have their own relationship with their drawing practice.
Yeah, amazing. And you've done a lot of face-to-face workshops, haven't you? So, like, to actually physically be in the presence of other people, that must be quite an amazing experience as well, rather than just always having the online experience.
Yeah.
What do you say the differences between those?
Well, do you know, I actually think I really like online. So I started in person. I've done quite a few, and I ran a course which was half in person, half online.
Okay.
Because a lot of what I'm doing, we've got slides. We're looking at a bit of science, and so It
Yep.
doesn't,
Okay.
need to be in person, that bit.
Hmm.
But actually, what I really want is for people to be using the drawing in their space.
Yeah.
So I don't want to think where you go to a room that's hired and that is your drawing experience, then you come away and you're back to your normal life. I
Yep.
want it to be in people's lives. So if it's, so one of the first things for the well-being course is that you make a little space somewhere in your house, even if it's just that, you push your keyboard
Okay.
back and because then you see that it's for you in your space, it's yours, rather than it's something for the posh studio that you go to once a week. So yeah, I find online is fine for that. And also it takes away the element of competition. As much as people say, oh yeah, it's all about the experience, then they're still looking over at their neighbour. What have you done? So you can't see that. And
Yeah.
it
Okay.
does.
That's actually helpful, isn't it? Yeah.
I also have to think about my own energy levels as well and
Yeah.
the
Okay.
sort of balance of everything. And for me, online is much easier than, having to go and get resources and book out something and travel and all the rest of it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it. I love it, but I have to do it so I don't burn out myself.
Yeah. It's another barrier, really, isn't it? So, if there is one thing that you would love for people to take away from one of your workshops, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. So many things. I think it would be one thing. I want to say three things.
Yeah, say three things. That's fine.
So I think the first thing, and maybe the most important thing, would be to look at yourself as if you're some interesting specimen, as if you're some kind of weird, animal in the jungle that you're observing, and to try to get the distance to observe yourself, to see what you're doing and to see how you're responding to things, and just be curious and just think, oh, that's interesting. That made me angry. Or, oh,
Mm.
I've gone through the whole day thinking about this one thing, ruminating again and again on this one thing. So I think that is incredibly powerful. And another thing, if I'm allowed more than one, would just be the joy that there is that we don't hang on to because we're so fixated on getting through the day and also on, negative things. So on actually slowing down and stopping and allowing things to land. When you see something that lights you up, maybe the light is falling in a particular way. The sun is out here today, absolutely beautiful, and it's catching my roses out of the window. And it would be so easy to just to go, oh yeah, it's sunny. But to actually spend a little moment, take a microsecond and just, look at them, enjoy them, revel in them. And obviously when you're drawing, that is the process you're doing. Even with things that look quite unappealing, you can sit with it and suddenly it reveals its wonder to you and it tops you up. And so to create micro moments through your day like that, it just raises your level of contentment and well-being. We can't be happy all the time because that's a right up here emotion, but it can just bump up your feeling of well-being, your feeling that everything's going to be okay.
And having the resources to access that, to be able to tap into that, when you are
Yeah.
sort of having an off moment, and it's a skill set, it's a way of living that I don't think some people really have developed. So it's very powerful to be able to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, that's being able to observe yourself with that distance to say, right, I'm really stressed at the moment. I can see I'm really stressed, but wow, look at that rose over there. Isn't that amazing? And to still have the space for both of those things to be true, I think that's really a superpower.
Definitely. So what about you then? What does your own self-care or wellness routine look like? What do you do to care for yourself?
Um, well, I move. That's, it's taken me probably over 30 years to realize that that is a luxury. And I try to move every day. So I do either some yoga or Pilates or even weight training or something every day just to move my body. And I've got a dog, so that means I definitely move at least twice a day. And I'm quite rigid about the boundaries around my time. So, I don't really have very much time because I've got young kids, so I'm doing pick up and drop off and all sorts of other, it's amazing. At this time of year for us in the UK, it's the end of term, and how many more things can you cram into the last week of term? So many things. I need to remember this kit on this day and this extra thing, and so that all can easily eat away into my time and my energy as well. So I'm quite fierce that and I come into the studio, I close the door, and that is my time then. And it's very easy for things like the admin of running a business to erode your creative time. And so after, I think I had an experiment, and I had gone through a whole month without picking up a paintbrush. And I thought, this is a joke. I'm meant to be an artist and I'm not doing anything. So I'm really very strict about trying to do at least 50% of my time actually painting. And then I feel like I can actually speak with authority because I'm doing it. So yeah, those are the things I think. So looking after, like, moving my body, and because it's very sedentary as well, sitting and drawing all day. Not that I'm doing that, and then actually keeping distinct hours where I'm unavailable. I'm in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it, to keep all the plates spinning? So
Yeah, and it's a season like everything. I know that I want to be the kid. I'm not resenting them at all. It's an honor. And in 10 years' time, they won't even want to see me. So I'm enjoying it while I'm flat, and then I'll have more time. So yeah.
Yeah. So for other women or people then who are sort of seeking greater well-being and sort of this sort of intentional ease and presence in their daily life, what critical questions would you have them ask themselves today?
Well, I think your question, what do you do for yourself, is a really important one, because sometimes then when you shine a light on that, actually it's not for yourself, it's for somebody else, or for what you think is a good idea rather than what you really want to do. I think the question is, when are you still? When do you create space to be still? Because it's even the sort of well-being world is almost following that same consumer capitalist plan of kind of becoming busy, 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 busy. The next thing. If you've got a spa day, fancy massage, whatever. And actually, it's all about slowing down and following a much more human rhythm, which is in line with nature. So where can you insert a pause in your day, whether that's 30 seconds or 5 minutes? If you're having a cup of tea, can you take your cup of tea outside and sit down with it and just be still for a minute? And what's interesting is usually the stillness, for me as well, makes you twitchy. It's not very comfortable sometimes. And that's really useful feedback, because perhaps you're doing too much, or perhaps you're just sort of, I don't know, maybe your parasympathetic nervous system isn't online. You're too busy kind of rushing to the next thing. So just to calm yourself down, to get back to being present and to slowing down, even if it's a couple of minutes every day, and you'll feel the benefit more than an hour of meditation once every 2 weeks.
Such a simple thing, isn't it? It's so powerful.
Yeah,
I think sometimes it's like almost like setting a timer, so you're sort of forcing yourself for 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever you've got to just really sit there as you promised yourself when you started. But it's very tempting sometimes to sort of get up after 2 minutes and not have completed the exercise, right? So
I think timer is timer is a brilliant thing, because you never prioritize yourself. If you've got other things going on, that's so easy to go out the window. But yeah, absolutely brilliant idea. Yeah.
So how can people get to know you a little bit better then, Helena, and get a real feel for the work you do and see some of your beautiful paintings? Where do they go to find out more about you?
Well, my website's probably the first place. So that's helenaperry.co.uk. And on there is kind of links to everything. I'm also on Instagram and I'm on Facebook as well. I've also got the YouTube channel, which is just time lapses pretty much, and little excerpts from my workshops. If you're interested in a workshop, I've got one that starts on the 29th of September. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way. And then just, there's a contact me form if you want to ask any questions, and any things that I've got coming up, exhibitions or events, I always put on there as well on my website. Actually, if you sign up to my newsletter, that's probably the best way. And then hear all the stuff behind the scenes as well.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on today. I loved our conversation and I love your spell paintings even more. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love your work as well. And I think, yeah, we're very aligned in what we're doing.
Very
Yeah, it's an honor.
aligned. Thank you. If you'd like to start cultivating a deeper and more connected relationship with your inner intuition and reconnect with who you really are and what you really want, try my brand new Intuitive Collage Soulflowers workshop, blending both creativity and art making together with soul-led wellness practices and featuring a fun, beginner-friendly collage activity using flowers that speak to your soul as inspiration. To find out more, please head to samhorton.co/workshop.